Good evening, Rabbi. We're going to discuss tonight a very important topic, which always, there's a lot of questions about this issue, always coming up, and the answers are never clear. You know, you ask, let's say you do a survey, ask 10 rabbis. Each rabbi will give you a different answer, this, that. None of the answers will match up somehow.
So let's call Dershowitz.
Okay. So, every time you get something else. So the question is, why are these, questions so controversial? You never get a straight answer out of anybody, what the truth is, So in order to try to get to the truth, we have to go a little bit deeper, dig it a little bit deeper into this topic. In order to really get to the bottom line, and to really understand what's behind the controversy. That's what I'm trying to tell you, right? By the way, you may think it's very simplistic, the whole thing, what's the big deal either way? But there is actually a big deal regarding this. So what am I talking about? Talking about, we have basically several types of foods that we eat, on a regular basis, as Jews, as fast food consumers, all kinds of things like this. Also Jews that observe Shabbat. So what are we talking about? When we talk about Jews, eating, what's our special food that nobody else eats besides us? Matza, right? No coincidence you're eating that today. You brought the matzah. So, Baruch Hashem, you're eating that. That's good. Lechem oni, right? Bread of affliction, that's what it's called. But anyway, that's one question, What's the blessing on the matzah? When you eat the matzah, what blessing are you supposed to recite? So there's a whole discussion about that. Also, there's another thing. What blessing do you recite when you eat pizza? Which is the biggest fast food today, right? Nothing compares to it. The best seller out of all of them, right? Nothing sells like pizza. So, also a big controversy in Jewish halakha, in Jewish law. What is the blessing for pizza? Number 3, also something which we have for Shabbat as Jews. So what are we talking about? We're talking about sweet chalot. The challah, that we buy for Shabbat. So the truth is, when I was a kid, I remember that even like the goyish supermarkets, they would sell challah. They used to bake it themselves. There was they baked challah.
Yeah.
And people used to come there and buy that. So it was considered like a delicacy. You buy it for Shabbat. You buy it as a nice snack. Nice thing, whatever. That's also another question. What is the blessing for all those 3? So the truth is that, all these three things that we just mentioned, they all do have some kind of a common denominator. And that's why all 3 of them are quite, as we said, right? They're quite in dispute, quite controversial, these things. And I'll explain to you why that is. So in order to get to the bottom of this whole discussion, right? First of all, we have to know one thing. That the rule is, the Gemara teaches us in Masechet Brachot, that when you eat bread, okay, so there's a whole thing what you have to do there. You have to go wash your hands first of all. Do netilat yadayim. So the rabbis were gozer, they made a decree that every time you eat bread, you have to wash your hands. And there's all kinds of reasons why they did that. We're not going to get into that now. That's not our discussion. But you got to wash your hands with a cup, not just off the sink, Okay, so bread needs to wash hands. After you wash the hands, you dry it, you make netilat yadayim, bless netilat yadayim. So then the question is, right, what's the blessing you make? Hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Baruch atah Hashem Elokim melech haolam, hamotzi lecha min haaretz. What does that mean? The one who brings forth bread from the ground. That's what we're blessing Hashem when we eat bread. So then once you eat your meal and finish, if you had at least an olive size or more of the bread, which is about the 27 grams, whatever it is, you have to make also Birkat HaMazon, grace after meals, right? Which is quite a long prayer. It can take you from anywhere from 4 minutes, depending if you're fast or if you're slow, right? It can take you, 15 minutes, God knows whatever it is, right? Depending on how fast you read. But anyway, the point is, right, that this requires the whole ritual. Washing your hands, netilat yadayim, drying your hands, making a blessing, making hamotzi, and then Birkat HaMazon. So it's quite a heavy ritual, What's the reason for that? Because since it's a meal, so we want to bless God for giving us the meal, the sustenance, and that we should have more blessing afterwards. So that's why we want to do it this way. What's the reason why bread has such a big ritual like this? More than any other food. Right? There's no ritual like what you have on bread. The answer is that teaches the Gemara, Masechet Brachot, that bread satiates you. So what does that mean? You feel full, when you eat bread. When you eat something else, you're not really full. Like a half hour later, you're hungry again, right? By the way, matzah is bread, so you get full from matzah as well. Pretty much the same thing, right? We're going to discuss that, by the way, what the difference is, if there is any difference between matzah and bread. So what happens is that bread satiates you. So we're doing a long ritual in order to thank Hashem for this privilege of being able to eat bread and being satiated, and then we can go and do our jobs, whatever our jobs is that we do as individuals, as Jews. Fine, very good, Baruch Hashem. Now, there's also another category of food which is close to bread, but not exactly the same category. So what do we call that, right? In Hebrew, the word bread, right? There's two words for bread in Hebrew. One is lechem. Lechem is bread. There's also another word which is used more in the rabbinic jargon, which is called pat. Pat. Pat is also bread. So there's pat, but there's also another category which is called pat abba bekisnin. What does that mean? That means it's bread, but it comes with kisnin. So it's a little bit different than the regular bread that you use for your meal. What's the difference between this and that? So comes the Bet Yosef and gives you there three definitions of what that is, right? What kind of bread are we talking about? So the difference between this and that one, you know what it is? Pata baba kisnin and regular bread, is that these types of breads, they're like specialty breads, they're not the regular white bread that people just eat together with a meal. So what are we talking about? There's two different opinions about down there in the Bet Yosef. We already discussed this a little bit inside, a little bit briefly, but now we're going to get into a little more at length. So over there, it brings us three different opinions, what pata baba kisnin is. This is, by the way, what we call, in common language, we call that cake, right? It's cake, basically, or in Georgia, they call it lekech. It's also in Ashkenazim, they have this word, lekech, whatever it is, right? Something like that. So all these things are basically called pata baba kisnin. So what's the difference between this and that? According to Rambam, regular bread, which is hamotzi, is not sweet, right? Just regular white bread. But when it comes to pata baba kisnin, which is like lekech, it's more like sweet, whatever. It has a flavor. Either it's sweetened with sugar or with honey, or they put some kinds of seasoning in there, spices and God knows what, right? Oil, milk, right? All kinds of ingredients that give a different kind of taste. So that's called pata baba kisnin. What's the difference between this and that? Why should these two have two different blessings? Right? So the truth is that the underlying reason why these breads don't have the same blessing is because regular bread is you eat with a meal. It's white bread. But this bread, right, is eaten not with a meal. It's more like a dessert or a snack. So since you're not using it as a meal in general, so therefore the rule is, we make mezonot, we don't wash hands, and no birkat hamazon, just men shalosh. So it's a shorter blessing. It's a shorter ritual altogether, whether it's in the beginning or in the end, right? Shorter ritual. No washing hands, no netilat yadayim, no blessing netilat yadayim, and no birkat hamazon, right? All these. So it's much shorter. The whole thing is shorter. Why is it shorter? Because it's not really a meal; it's a snack. So we don't have to go so long into blessing Hashem about giving us a snack because we have to do with a meal. So that's one opinion, according to Rambam. There's also two other opinions brought down in Bet Yosef, right? Second opinion is, what is pata baba kisnin? It's bread which is kisnin, which means like it has like a language of kis. So the word kis in Hebrew, you know what that means? You ever hear this word? Pocket, right? Kis. Yeah. So it's a bread which has a pocket. What does that mean? It has filling inside. Like, your Khachapuri, your Lobuani, the Georgian stuff, and all these barekas that we have, right? Calzones, things like this, where you have like a filling inside. There's a hole in the bread, and a big cavity, little pocket. You put your stuff in there, and you fill it up, and you eat that, right? That's the idea, right? That's a different type of pata b'kisnin. Here also, right, the reason why it has a different designation is because people don't eat it so much for meals. It's more like a snack. You know what I mean? It's not your average meal. That's definition number 2. Definition number 3, right, which is koses. Kislin, koses. What does that mean? Koses, it's something that you crunch, it's crunchy, crispy. It's like, not soft, right? That's the idea, So what would be an example of that? Your average garden variety cracker, right? And now here, right, is where we get into the issue of matzot. Because matzot are also crispy. So according to what we just said, matzot is not really bread. What does that mean? Since it's crispy and it's right, it's more likely to be eaten as a snack than as a meal. On the other hand, though, on Pesach, right, that's our meal. What do we eat for Pesach? We eat matzot. That's our meal. So the question is, what is the blessing from matzah? Is it hamotzi? It's a meal? Or is it mezonot and it's just a snack? That's the question, right? So it has to do with this definition that we just mentioned. So here we have 3 different things going on. So now this has to do with all kinds of things, right? As we just mentioned, according to Rambam, pata b'kisnin, which is the dessert bread, whatever, is something which is sweet or whatever, or flavored. So what does that mean? According to Rambam, when you eat challah, like sweet challah, the blessing is mezonot. Because it's not really eaten as a meal, it's a snack. It's a dessert. It's like a cake, So therefore, if you eat a sweet challah, but now the thing is, the Ashkenazim, on Shabbat, what do? They eat sweet challah for Shabbat, but they make what? Hamotzi, not a mezonot, right? So they hold that for sweet challah, the halakha, the blessing is hamotzi. On the other hand, the Sephardim, most of the Sephardi communities, they hold that it's mezonot, because they go like the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch, the Bet Yosef. So this is a basic machloket. There's basic machloket between Ashkenazim and Sephardim regarding sweet bread, what the blessing is. Ashkenazim custom is to make hamotzi on sweet bread, especially on Shabbat. And what about what about the Sephardim? Most of the Sephardim do mezonot. Now the question is, who's right and who's wrong, right? Or they're both right. Elu divrei Elohim chaim. So the truth is, that after looking at this whole thing quite extensively, several years ago, I came up with the conclusion, basically, that the way it works is like this, that, as we said, there's 3 different definitions of what pata b'kisnin is. But it seems like each one is going according to their time, a different place, a different country that they lived in. So in this country, this is called pata b'kisnin. In this country, this is called pata b'kisnin. In this country, this is called pata b'kisnin. So each place has its own, right, custom. What's called pata b'kisnin? What is a snack? What is called a snack bread? So therefore, the rule is that. Why am I telling you this? Because the truth is that if you go to a place where the custom is not like that, what does that mean? Let's say you go to Ashkenaz, right? You go to Ashkenazim, you go to Poland, or a place like this, you go to Europe. So over there, what happened was that sweet bread was hamotzi. So the custom was over there, this is not called pata b'kisnin. It's not called cake, because people eat it for meals. So what do you really see from there, right? What you see is that it has to do with the custom of the country that you live in. So therefore, if you live in a country which eats sweet bread, as a meal, then you have to make hamotzi on that. That's the way. After looking at it for an extensive, long period of time, that was the conclusion we came up with. We brought, by the way, proofs for this. There's many proofs that we discussed about this. Why it has to be that way? Because the truth is, otherwise it doesn't come out. It doesn't make any sense how you can say, right, one or the other. So comes the Bet Yosef and says, we go like all these opinions. What does that mean? That they're all right. There's no mistake over here. It just has to do with different places have different customs. That's what it is. That's what it's all about. So, anyway, there's a big machloket regarding this, as we said. So, but the bottom line is that if you're eating sweet bread in a country, like in America, for instance, where they do eat sweet bread for meals, let's say you go to a diner, right, like some kind of restaurant, right? Sometimes they'll serve you sweet bread because, it's considered to be a part of the meal. They're going to give you sweet bread, they're going to give you soup, and then some appetizer and some main course, right, whatever. And you're going to eat it with sweet bread. Why? Because sweet bread is considered to be a meal in the Western countries. On the other hand, in the Eastern countries, right, I know even in Georgia, right, where we came from, nobody ate challah as a meal. It was a snack. Or dessert or something like that, you know what I mean? So what does that mean? You never had some main dish, like Georgia, like shechamadi, or chalia, and eat it with challah. Nobody did that in Georgia. You understand? Nobody did that. Why is that? Because challah wasn't considered to be bread. So more in the Eastern countries, the Sephardi countries, nobody ate sweet bread as a meal. Nobody did that. In the Western countries, they do. That's the thing, So what happens? So therefore, in a place like that, Western country, you do have over there people eating it as a meal. So therefore, the proper thing to do, Bemet, is that even though there are those who argue, I know many rabbis will swear up and down, and say, no, it's mezonot. But the truth is, when you're eating a meal and you're having sweet challah, this is your meal. It's hamotzi. It's your meal. We're not talking here about now you're living in some Eastern country. We're talking about Western country. Over there, people do make meals out of that. That's the thing. So therefore, the more proper thing to do is to do what? That if a person is having sweet challah, especially on Shabbat, right? Especially on Shabbat, what he should do is make hamotzi always, no matter what. Even though there's another opinion as also. I know that. I acknowledge that, right? We understand that. But nevertheless, the proper thing to do is to make hamotzi. Why is that? Because you're having a meal. You're having appetizer and first course, second course, third course, whatever, right? Main course, right? Geinam, jojocheti, whatever, You're having everything over there. So what are you going to say? It's a snack? All that is a snack? You can't make a joke out of it, right? You're having a meal. Since you're having a meal, the truth is, there are some who say that but having a meal means you have to eat 4 egg sizes, 200 grams. But the truth is, today nobody eats 200 grams of bread, usually for meals. They eat usually less than that, about 100 grams maybe. So therefore, right, the truth is that you don't have to have that much either. So the more correct way to do it is like this, that it goes according to the custom of the country. If in that country sweet bread is called a meal, you have it as a meal. And if you don't, and if you try to do it as mezonot, you're cheating yourself. Why? Because everybody's having a meal over here and you're not. And you're trying to make it look like it's a snack. It's not a snack. Okay, very good. That's regarding, right, sweet challah. Now let's go to the 2 other topics that we're going to talk about, right, which is matzot. So as we said, right, that according to one opinion, matzot is patababa kisnin. What does that mean? It's like also a snack food. Why is that? Because it's crispy, So because of that, people don't usually eat crispy bread for meals. It's more like a snack, Like you just had a snack now. Was that a meal you had? It was a snack, right? That's what I'm talking about. By the way, I personally don't eat matzah like that. I don't eat it as a snack, Like either I make a meal out of it, or I just don't touch it, Because I have a different way of looking at it a little bit. I'll explain to you what that is. But anyway, the point is, right, that... Now, here's the funny part. The funny part is when it comes to matzot, as we said, right, on Pesach, everybody makes hamotzi on matzot. Why? Because that's your bread. We don't have any other bread. That's all we have, But there is also like this opinion kind of thing like this, where the Sephardim, so a lot of the Sephardim have this custom, that on matzah, on Pesach, we're going to make hamotzi. But when it comes to the rest of the year, we're going to make mezonot, But it's a very strange thing to do that. I'll tell you why. Because we don't really have a case like this in the Gemara, in the Talmud, a precedent like this, where we're making 2 brachot on the same food for different seasons, seasonal blessings. No such a thing like that in the halakha, So therefore, it's really considered to be something really brand new, something out of out of the woodwork, as they say, right? Just something not very natural in the laws of brachot. We don't have any cases like that in brachot, where you make a different blessing for right for a different season. So therefore, right, Maran Rav Avadia, what I was told by people who are very close to him, I personally never saw this, by the way, myself, even though I was in his house many times, but I never saw him eating matzah, before. This is one thing that I never caught, right? So why do I tell you about this? Because the ones who did see him, what they said was that he makes hamotzi on matzot. But even though he writes in his own book, Yebi Omer, that the blessing of the Sfaradim have a custom to make mezonot all year round on matzot, except on Pesach. Why is that? Because it's a snack food, basically, crispy. But nevertheless, he himself didn't hold by that, even though he wrote this in his books. By the way, sometimes it happens that a rabbi will write something in his book, and he brings that as the custom. But he himself doesn't hold by that custom. That happens sometimes. This is one example of that, where Maran Rav Shalom, he himself didn't hold by this custom. Even though the Chidah brings it down, one of the older, right, the earlier Sephardi authorities, great authority, the Chidah, he brings it down that the proper thing to do is to make mezonot because of the doubt. There's a doubt there, but nevertheless, the prevailing custom, amongst most Jews, is they make on the matzah, not mezonot, but hamotzi. So what does that mean by most Jews? What do I mean by that? That all the Ashkenazi make hamotzi on matzah all year round. And there are some Sfaradim, like we mentioned, right? Some unusual people like me and the Maran Rav and others who also make hamotzi. Why is that? Because since it's bread, like on Pesach, how can you come and say after Pesach it's not bread anymore? What happened? Right? What happened? How did it change? Right? What now is this? Then it was that. Now is this. Doesn't make any sense like that in brachot blessings. Either it's this or it's that. Make up your mind. Right? You can't have it both ways. Like they say, there's this famous saying in Israel. You can't dance at two weddings at the same night. You know what I mean? You got to go either to this. It's a saying. It's like a proverb, whatever. So that's the idea, like you can't have it both ways. Either pick one or the other, you can't have it two ways. But the truth is, that these are very borderline cases, So even the one who makes mezonot on it sort of has what to rely on because that's a custom, But the more correct, according to Svara, according to the logic, according to the sources, the more correct way is to make hamotzi on matzah. Very good. Now let's go to the third case, which is the fast food, right? Pizza. So the question is, what's the blessing on pizza? So here, right, the truth is that we have a machloket also here. There's a dispute. Where isn't there a dispute? There's a dispute about everything, right? So here also there's a dispute. So what's the dispute? Says Moshe Feinstein, one of the great poskim of this the country of America. He was a great posek of this country. He writes that depends on how much you eat, pizza, If you have one slice, mezonot, it's a snack, If you have two, doubtful, Maybe it's hamotzi, maybe it's a meal, maybe it's a snack. 3, for sure, it's a meal, so it's hamotzi. That's what he says. Moshe Feinstein. So the question is this correct according to halacha? A lot of people, by the way, in the Ashkenazi world, in the American world, they do like this ruling of Moshe Feinstein. But the truth is, that most of the poskim jumped on it and did not agree with this. They jumped on him because what they said was, by the way, and it's very true, that pizza is not made as a snack; it's made as a meal. Most people, when you go to a pizzeria, you're not there to have a snack. You're there to eat dinner or lunch, basically. Who's eating a snack over there? Going over there, and then 2 hours later, he's going to eat again. So what's the point? What did he accomplish by going to the pizzeria? So the point is that the food pizza, in its essence is bread. It's not cake and it's not a snack. So what he's saying is that it's on the border. What does it mean on the border? How is that on the border? Because what he's saying is that it's like, the definition that we gave, that it's like pockets, you make a bread has a pocket and you put some filling in there. So that's what he compares pizza to, It's like, you have your dough and you have your cheese and sauce, so it's like a pocket kind of thing. In other words, you have a bread with a filling, topping, whatever you want to call it, right? That's the idea. So here also, all the poskim don't agree with Moshe Feinstein. So therefore, the poskim already warns, about this, that we shouldn't rely on this ruling of Moshe Feinstein. It's really like a minority opinion. It doesn't seem to hold water so well. And what's the reason why? Because very simple, as we mentioned, pizza is not a snack, it's a meal.
Yeah.
So again, right, this is the reason why a person, when he eats pizza, what should he do? Wash his hands and say hamotzi and say birkat hamazon, even if he's only having one slice. Because, there's a lot of, by the way, you should know, there's a lot of ladies, who, for one slice is enough for them. That's their meal. They're on a diet, they don't want to eat too much. So one is good. They're done. Okay, the guys will have usually 2 or 3, The young boys will have maybe 3, they're bottomless pit, the teenagers. You know what I mean? They never stop eating, these kids. But we're talking about the older people, they'll eat 2, that's good enough for them, they're done. So therefore, right, the rule is that pizza is not a snack. By the way, it's possible, that the reason why Moshe Feinstein gave this ruling, that if it's up to 2, it's a snack, is because he himself probably, was not a big pizza eater, you know what I mean? He was not a big pizza aficionado. His wife, his Rebbetzin, probably cooked very good foods at home. He didn't have to go out to restaurants, and stuff like this. Big rabbis like that, by the way, they shouldn't be in restaurants anyway. It's not proper for them to be there. It's not kavod.
You know what? It also depends how pizza is made. Some pizzas have very thin crust.
Absolutely.
They're very light.
Yes.
And it doesn't really feel like a meal when you eat it.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have like 2 or 3 of them, so then it's gonna be pretty filling, right?
Listen, I think Jeff told me he ate 5 pies once.
5 pies.
5 pies. He rolls them up.
Ooh.
He swears to it. He rolled it up like a.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you're not talking about personal pies, right? You're talking about the big pies.
I'm talking about big pies. He's out of his mind.
What, even at this age you're talking about?
No.
When he was a kid?
Yeah.
That's something else. Yeah. As I said, when you're a kid, you're like a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
It just you never stop eating.
Yeah. I could never eat more than 3 slices, to be honest with you.
Right. Me too. I mean, I'm the same way.
Even back then.
Right, even back then. Sure.
But that's pretty.
But then again, you don't hit the drums like he does.
Look, I guess
when he hits it, he hits it.
You also had a great metabolism when you were young. You were
sure. Sure.
You and him were very thin.
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's the way it was. That's the way it is. But so here also same thing, right? That even though there's a machloket, there's a dispute.
It's bread.
It's bread. Basically, that's what it is. Pizza is bread.
Yeah.
It's just regular bread. You're making a dough. You're putting some stuff on top of it as a topping. That's just a relish for the bread. That's what it is. So it's not going to become something else. So therefore, the rule is, pizza is also going to be, right, according to the real halacha, it's going to be hamotzi.
Yeah.
By the way, there are some who have like an interesting conditional rule there, caveat kind of thing, where, if the pizza is made out of, kneaded from milk instead of water, then they say it's mezonot, it's like you understand? There are some pizzas which are made from milk.
Yeah.
Why they do that? In order to, then it shouldn't be hamotzi, right? They want to save the washing the hands and saying birkat hamazon. Too lazy, So what they do is they make it out of, right? But the truth is, that, honestly, this is not really a solution for this problem. What's the reason why? Because since people eat it as a meal, it really doesn't really matter, whether you knead it with milk or with water, because your purpose is to have a seudah. So according to what we said, you really shouldn't make much of a difference, this whole
this
whole thing. Yeah. It's pretty much like a decoy, cover-up kind of thing. There are things, by the way, which are also close to these 3 foods that we mentioned. Also, I want to mention them, which is what about bagels, right? What's a blessing for bagels? So the truth is that what they say is that the way it's done, bagels, is that first it's boiled, in a cauldron, and then they bake it afterwards. That's why it comes out so crispy, like that. That crispy, this texture that it has, that's because they boil it first. You know what I mean? That boiling gives like a nice, shiny coating on it, Postika sakatips,
Yeah.
So it makes a nice, bald spot on the bread, right? So this is the reason why. So that's the question is, what's the blessing? The truth is, that they say in poskim, seems to be like everybody agrees pretty much, that when it comes to bagels, it's hamotzi. Why? Always going to be hamotzi. Because even though it's boiled, but then they put it in the oven, they bake it. So since it's baked at the end, consider it to be that it's baked. So therefore, the blessing is hamotzi. So all these things, as we said, right, pretty much, they're all hamotzi. That's the bottom line. That's the great denominator for all these things. They're all hamotzi. There's also other foods, which are like also somewhat, unclear about what the blessing is for them. But the rule is like this, as a general rule, whatever kind of bread you're using as a meal, it's hamotzi. That's what it is. So it depends on what the purpose is for most people when they eat that food. Is it a meal purpose or is it a snack purpose? That's the thing. That's the way it goes. So therefore, the proper thing to do, bottom line, is that a person should make hamotzi and wash his hands and the sefer katamazon for all these things we mentioned, right? Which is the sweet challah, right, and the matzah, and the pizza, and the bagels, right, and all these types of these foods, yeah. And the reason is because they're all meals, Nobody eats a bagel as a snack,
No.
Bagel is very filling,
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's not the way it is, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, for sure, right. What about bialy?
In my opinion, it's the same thing.
So it's even more. Why? Because apparently the bialy, they don't boil it. They just bake it basically.
Yeah.
It's all baked. So therefore, it's more of a bread than the bagel is.
It's an English muffin, basically.
Okay, yeah, I got you. All right, that sounds good. So all these things are gonna be hamotzi, right? So therefore, there's no way to do shortcuts with these things, and make it mezonot, so you can do a quickie, Don't wash your hands. That's what they're looking for. People looking for excuses,
Yeah.
not to wash their hands, not to say birkat hamazon, to save time. And this is why they're looking for all these shortcuts, But the truth is that all these shortcuts are not correct according to the right the ultimate logic of these halachot, the ultimate sources. It's not correct to make mezonot on these things, So what is mezonot? Patara de kisnin. It's something which comes as snack food, basically. That's what it is. So what is a snack food? Snack food is like cake, cookies, we call it pancakes, things like this, pancakes is a little bit different. There's a different dynamics there, because it's fried, it's not baked. That's the reason why. Even if you have it as a meal, it doesn't make any difference. Why? Because it's not baked. So anything which is made like that as a snack food, cookies, crackers, things like this, they're all mezonot. Why is that? Because people don't usually make meals out of them. That's what it's all about, That's the whole thing. There's also something interesting, which is like Melba toast. You remember that Melba toast with those things? Yeah, so they're like pretty popular in Israel, these foods. A lot of older people like them, for some reason. They're light, whatever. So the question is it hamotzi or is it mezonot, That's actually, I heard there's a big machloket in the poskim regarding if Melba toast is...
Is it a sin to make a mistake and actually bless it as a bread?
Oh, so here's the thing, right? That the
Just
blessing it
like
as a
you
bread
said,
is not so bad.
Yeah.
But the problem is saying birkat hamazon, which is over there you have 4 blessings, and you're saying it in vain because you didn't really eat bread. This is where the problem comes in more, That's why the Beit Yosef says, as a general rule, whenever there is a doubt about a certain food, we make mezonot. Why is that? Because we don't want to make blessing in vain, That's the thing. That's the whole, this is the reason why. Okay, very good. I hope we got some clarity on that a little bit. I know that people are going to argue with me, and say the opposite way, and that's okay. There's different opinions about this. But after some years of research that I've done, this is basically the bottom line and the truth of the matter, right? And the proper way to go.
This guy Feinstein is still alive, or?
Oh, Moshe Feinstein.
Yeah.
Shalom. He passed away in the 80s, a long time ago. Yeah, a long time ago. He was already.
Well.
Yeah. But he was, great posek, great chacham, big tzaddik, alav shalom. Something very special, I remember when I first heard his name, when I first, started studying Torah, I said, who's Feinstein? Who's Feinstein? But then, after I learned who he really was, I said, oh, not Feinstein, Rav Moshe Feinstein. He was a great scholar. He was a great posek,
Okay.
Big man, But we don't agree with him everything, There's certain things we don't agree with him. That's okay, That's the way of the Torah. Life goes on, We argue, we take a vote, right? And we decide what's the halakha, right? Today problem is we don't have a vote. We don't have a vote. Okay, all we have a vote to is to elect, which phony politician is going to come after one after the other.
With scumbag,
Baruch Adonai Le'olam, amen, amen. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth, health, and happiness.
Amen, amen.
And security. Chazak.
Have the ladies